Hello everybody and welcome back. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Deborah Hatswell and you're listening to BBR Investigations. In my recent podcast you've heard me theorise that many of the cryptid creatures here in the UK are seen by, in or close to a river. And as you can imagine, there are numerous rivers in the United Kingdom. About 22 of them can be classed as major rivers. The longest river in the UK is the River Severn, which flows through England and Wales and is 222 miles long. And this is closely followed by the River Thames, which is about 215 miles. Each of these rivers have smaller streams and brooks that also connect to them, enabling routes that pipe past many towns and cities. You're never far from a water source on our island. And with continuous rainfall, I'm not in any danger of drying up anytime soon. Along these green corridors, because in reality that's what they are, even the smallest stream can be a vital habitat for wildlife. So I decided to put my theory to the test and look at some of the rivers here as randomly as possible and see if they had any creature reports close to them. I tried to go with new reports you've not heard from before, if possible, and in some cases there is more than one report on that particular river. So I will try and add as much information as possible for that area. I simply added the name of every river and used an app to randomly choose a waterway in all four corners of the country, and I looked for the closest report alongside them. Now, there are far too many for me to mention in one podcast. In fact, I was astounded just how many reports there are to choose from. Well, let's start with the first name to be called, and it's one of the tributaries of my favourite river, the River Trent. The Derwent. It's a river in Derbyshire, England. It's 50 miles long, and throughout its course, the river mostly flows through the Peak District, and its foothills known for the historical Wildman accounts there. Much of the river's route, with the exception of the city of Derby, is very rural. Our first case centres around the area of Malton, and a cluster of strange reports in that area, which is within stepping distance of the river itself. Our first case is called A Lumbering Beast, and that was seen in Malton by a lad named Lee, and he said, "Hi Deborah, I contacted you as I had a really weird experience when I was staying at a house close to the area you mentioned in your live feed the other day, where there are reports of strange creatures. I was out with a few workmates from the Malton bacon factory. We drank loads of beer and we had a really good night. I crashed out and slept. We all did. The next day I woke about 4:30 a.m, feeling a little worse for wear, so I went for a walk up from the house to get some air. It was a very long lane and I slowly walked along, just trying to freshen up. I was approaching, but not close to, a crossroads, and over the road was a little village. And as I approached, I heard a dog barking like mad. But I couldn't see a dog, and there was no way that one of them could have seen me. I was too far away. But something must have set it off. I decided I was going to get to the end of the road and go into the village, but this dog by this time was going mental. It was barking like mad, like something was bothering it. It didn't sound like a normal bark, it was different. It spooked me a bit because I knew it wasn't barking at me, it was barking at something else. I suddenly felt very vulnerable, so I turned around and started back down the long road. I felt uneasy, like I thought something could be following me, but I'm sure it was just my imagination. I didn't want to run, as whatever it was, or whatever it could have been, if it was wild, it'd come after me. At this point, I was walking faster to try and get back to the flat. Luckily, a milk tanker driver pulled up and asked me if I needed a lift, and I accepted. He told me then about the news story that had been on the TV the night before, about the weird creature in the fields, and you'd mentioned it on your live feed. I got a chill when you said it. I think the news report Lee's referring to is a case of a bizarre beast that's been spotted by a walker in fields around the Selby area of Yorkshire. Steve Weston, who lived in Selby, was walking home from work in Birkin on Wednesday when he spotted a large black figure that he described as lumbering across the side of a field. He was heading towards the Gateforth area. He said, "I've never seen anything like this in my life. It was completely bizarre." When I saw it, I thought to myself, what on earth's that? Steve said that the animal was far too large to be a dog and said that it didn't have similar movements to any animals that he'd seen around the area before. It looked to be absolutely huge. It was just unexplainable, he said. It looked to be really thick and muscular. It ran through the fields, changing directions multiple times before chasing after a hare and running off into the distance. It wasn't anything that I'd recognise. Not too long after I'd taken Lee's report, I was contacted by a man named Marcus, who had his own strange experience within a mile of that bacon factory along the river. He said, "Hello, my name's Marcus. I sent this email so I could make a report of a cryptid sighting that happened to myself and my friend. We experienced happened on the 20th of June, 2022. My friend and I went cycling around Malton. We live in Ryton, just outside the town. We started off going through Malton and back to Ryton down a small bike lane that goes past the Eden camp. When we went past the Eden camp, my friend started to feel as if we were being followed by something, and it was dark by this time. We kept on walking, and further up the road we saw a baby deer. It came out onto the road, and then ran past us and went off into the bushes. We didn't think anything of that, as you see deer around here all the time, so we didn't pay much attention to the deer, or why they would be running out in the open like that, until we went past a set of houses. As we walked past, we heard some sort of loud, deep noises, almost like voices. I describe it as chittering, a chattering, coming from one of the gardens. It was at this point I got really scared as I saw a pair of red eyes looking at us from just above the grass line of the house. I don't know what has red eyes, or red eye shine, but as you can imagine, after hearing this weird speech and seeing whatever it was hiding in the grass, we quickly made our way back home, and we were really creeped out by it. When we got back home, my friend said that after we got away from the garden, he felt as if he could feel whatever it was watching us, following us close behind. But the way he explained it felt as if he was seeing things through the eyes of whatever it was, like it was literally following us back home. I did a quick check on the paranormal database and they revealed there are several haunting type manifestations in the Malton area. In the Spotted Cow public house, phantom footsteps have been heard echoing in the building and poltergeist-like behaviour has also been reported. In one of the old shops in the Castlegate area, it's said that a little girl with blonde, pigtailed hair wearing an old-fashioned blue dress, standing by the pick and mix, haunts the shop. She's been spotted by a member of staff as the employees call out her name. She moved towards the stockroom where she then vanished. The employee later stated that she'd spoken to another shop worker who immediately asked if the girl she'd seen had a blue dress on, as she'd seen her also. But I think the strangest report here is historical, and it speaks of a large battle in the sky, known as the Fighting Armies. The old tales tell that during a great storm, two armies marched through the sky and fought with firearms. The army which came in from the north was the first to vanish, but only after the accompanying storm caused much damage on the ground, scattering and killing livestock across the land. I'm unsure what the legend of the battle means, or even if it was a real battle at all. There isn't very much out there to help solve that mystery. So let's head over to the second random choice, which is the River Dub, and a report I took many years ago now. This report, even though it's quite short, struck with me. It stayed with me. As the witness explained, the creature he saw used one of the irrigation ditches to move away from the area. It was this report that made me question if our waterways were an easy way for cryptids to move around the country unseen. In the case of the River Dub, it's a principal river of the southwestern Peak District in England, about 45 miles in length. It rises on Axe Head Moor near Buxton and flows generally south with the River Trent where it joins Newton. Now, the River Dub bipedal grey creature was the report that I took, and that happened in 2006. And the gentleman who got in touch with me said somewhere between the years of 2006 and 2008, I was returning from Dugdale in Derbyshire, walking along the fields at the side of the River Dove. It was broad daylight, but I had no binoculars on me. I was just walking along when I saw something strange caught my eye. 1 field away on the other side of a 5 to 6 foot hedge, I saw an unmistakable grey creature that was approximately somewhere between 7 and 9 feet tall. I could see half of it visible above the hedge, leading me to believe it was bipedal, or at least stood upright in some way. It walked along the other side of the hedge and disappeared where the hedge ended. And at the time, I tried to think of a logical explanation. The only thing I could come up with was maybe I saw one cow sat on another cow's shoulders or something on the other side of the hedge. I mean, that's an impossible feat, but it'd give it the extra height and make it appear, like it was stood upright. However, when I reached the location, there were no cows in that field, and no sign of whatever the creature was. Returning to the site a year or two ago, I discovered a ditch running through the middle of the hedge with a stream in it, which the creature may have gone down into to disappear. I believe the creature came out of the wood, which is privately owned by gamekeepers. But I would like to investigate the area further, in the slim hope that whatever it wasn't, just passing through there. He said I couldn't make out any more details of the beast, other than the colour and the size, and it remains a mystery as to what I saw that day. In the same area, a mile or two along the river, there's another report from a wild camper who found some strange animal kills. He said, "We were camped in between Beresford and Dugdale, and on waking up in the morning, we packed up our gear and started walking back down. About 100 yards from where we were camping, we found the carcass of a sheep, with its spine ripped out. We noticed it looked fresh, but we never heard a thing in the night, and it wasn't there the evening before." I also found the following information written by David Clark on a website, At The Edge. David said, "A young man called Oliver Rowland contacted me back in '94 to describe his encounters with lights which haunt the beautiful limestone valley of the River Dove at Dugdale. The initial experience took place in March of '93, when Oliver and his friend Steve Ashall decided to go for a late night drive in the Derbyshire Peaks. Stopping the car in the car park at Dugdale, they went for a walk by the river towards the well-known stepping stones. As they got closer to the stones, two very bright white lights caught their attention, both approximately the same size. The lights were perfectly round and lit up the surrounding area, although they threw no beam at all. Making no noise, they danced in perfect symmetry, both following the other, and one moving right as the other moved left. The pair estimated they were between 10 and 100 feet above the river, the lights, and about double the width of the river away from them. They were moving up and down in crazy patterns, far too quickly for them to be lights of a motorbike size. Anyway, there would be no chance of a vehicle of any type moving up and down the cliff." Oliver said, "The experience, which lasted about 3 minutes, left us speechless. And then we started talking and questioned what it could be. There was something quite eerie about it. The men eventually decided to turn towards the car again, and, they were too frightened to look back. But they just kept walking, and eventually they broke into a run." The following day, the pair met with ridicule when they told family and friends at college. But in September of that year, Oliver returned with another college friend, Dean Atkins, to the Ballet, this time at 7 p.m, just after darkness had fallen. They walked 2 miles past the stepping stones and climbed a hill behind a chain of limestone caves and sat watching the valley from the point high above the river. Oliver said, "To be honest, I thought that to see such lights once was a miracle. I wasn't going to see them twice. But sure enough, one light, much larger than the previous one, made its appearance from the trees to our left, looking back along the river towards the car park. It seemed to rise and wobble along before disappearing into the trees. This was below us, and again we heard no sound. Later we saw another light, whilst on foot heading back towards a car. And again it was large, and it was a big sphere of light, white in appearance. Are all of these different experiences connected? For all this was a random selection. Both rivers flow through the peaks, meeting up with other river systems that also have cryptid reports close to them. Now let's leave England and look at some of the other countries here in the UK that have similar creature reports along their length. The river chosen for Scotland was the River Tay, which is the longest river in Scotland. The Tay originates in western Scotland on the slopes of Ben Louis, and then it flows easterly across to the Highlands. Most people know about the ghost train of Tay. The Tay Bridge disaster is one of the most memorable engineering catastrophes in Scotland's history. On the 28th of December 1879, just 2 years after it opened in Dundee, the bridge was hit by a terrible storm which weakened its central section and caused it to collapse while a passenger train was crossing, killing all those on board. And it's said that on the anniversary of the disaster, a ghostly train can be seen crossing the part of the Tay where the ill-fated bridge would have stood before disappearing at the point of collapse. Now, this area is also known for a couple of creature reports, and in both cases, the creature emerges from the tree line and crosses the road as if travelling straight for the river. The first account was sent to me by Cliff Barrickman of the BFRO in the United States. It happened in a very beautiful part of Scotland, less than a mile from the Tay Estuary and close to the A92. When this witness was at the Five Browns roundabout, he encountered a strange, hairy, human-type figure. The area was bordered by thick trees, and there was thick foliage on both sides of the road. A witness was driving home from work and was going down a road he'd travelled many times before. This is his account in his own words. After navigating the Five Browns roundabout, I was driving home southbound on the A92 when my headlights picked out what I thought was a man standing by my left-hand side of the road. I could see his figure clearly. He stepped out in front of my car, and I naturally brought the car to a halt to avoid hitting the strange individual. This person was large, hairy, like an ape-like creature, which turned to look at the car as I approached. Its eyes gave out a shine which was very noticeable, and it crossed the road in about 3 large strides. I felt uneasy, but I brought the car to a stop and I put the window down. I could hear something crunching away in the woods in there, as if something was clearly moving through that forest. I had no torch with me to shine towards it, and there was an unpleasant odour in the air, and suddenly I got a feeling I was being watched, and everything went very still and quiet. There was complete silence all around me. It was very unnerving. I then, shockingly, just continued to drive home. I didn't even realise I'd started to drive. I didn't stop until I reached my home. Thinking back, this individual was well over 7 feet tall, and he, and I mean he, was a dark brown colour. Its hair was of a reasonable length, and I've never seen this thing again, anywhere in Scotland. And up to now, I've only ever confided in my partner. I thought these creatures existed in other areas of the world, but not here in the UK. Now, there were rumours of sheep and cattle disturbances, he said, in the area from the farmhands and land managers, and then he went on to add, but I have heard of no sightings of any large hairy creatures in that area, or Scotland in general for that matter. I worked as a civil servant for many years, and I've experienced some crazy stuff, but I must admit, this was a big surprise even for me. Now, that report appeared in a local newspaper at the time, and it caught the attention of another local man who'd seen a similar creature in the area 10 years previously. Mark Luke, 46, saw what he described as a Bigfoot-like creature roaming the Fife countryside. He didn't speak about his own experience until he saw a report from 2005 in a local newspaper. Mr. Luke, who is a carer, said he spotted the tall, hairy, upright figure just off the Tay Road Bridge in '95, whilst travelling to Dundee to fill in for a night shift security cover. Mr. Luke explained. From what I could read in the Courier, I had a similar experience to the gentleman who reported his experience in 2005. I was driving back to Edinburgh around 8 a.m. I was on the A92, driving south in the same rough area that he was. Nothing out of the ordinary happened until I came to one point in the road and that changed. I can remember there was a forest on both sides of the road from me, and I looked to my left to see a tall, dark shape standing about 20 feet away in the trees. At first, I thought it was a large man, but then it started walking and came towards me, and I knew then it wasn't a man. He must have been huge. I'd guess some 8 to 10 feet tall, and he was really wide, it seemed. I was quite scared and confused, to be honest. I put my foot down fast and carried on driving. I wanted to be away from it. I was doing about 60 miles an hour and I wasn't going to go back and look. I was not going to go back or stop that car for anything until he was far behind me. It was dark under the trees, so it was very hard to see into them. I could see his shape, but I could not make out any facial details. He also said, I'm 90% sure that they're out there now. I won't ever be 100% sure, even though I've seen it with my own eyes. Just north of this account is the well-known Carmily Wildman account. Several other reports of upright hairy figures seen by locals and visitors to the area. Then there are more reports in Torpins and Bankery. Now let's go to Wales, and the River chosen was the River Taff. And a report that I took not too long ago goes close to that river. The River Taff flows from the River Severn in Cardiff, and it actually meets up north in the Merthyr Tydfil. And the report is an orange bipedal wolf. And this happened in Wales, 2020. Deb, what happened that day was a life-changing experience. It had since affected me really badly, and I'm struggling to cope or even contain a normal day-to-day existence due to the fear of the incident. I think as well as the trauma of the sighting, the fact it happened in my childhood playground has taken that area from me as well. I love those woods, or I would say I did. My whole life I was never scared before this incident. I can't visit them now. Even looking at them brings everything back. I'm not sure what to do since this happened. It's changed my entire viewpoint. I live in Wales, not far from Pontypridd. This all happened mid-COVID. I'd had an accident where I broke some bones and I'd been recuperating for a long time. Back before this happened, I had to be in nature as often as I could. I grew up this way, and the woods soothed me. My mobility was still not good, but my friend kindly offered to drive me there, so I agreed. I went with him to the old woods. I had a lovely time at first. I sat in a glade listening to the birds sing and the breeze moving through the leaves. It was really relaxing. I'm so glad I'd gone, until I saw it. I was just sitting there chilling, remembering old times. I played there for hours as a kid. We used to make dens and rope swings and spend all day out there, only coming home for tea. Those were some of my happiest memories. Sadly, that's not happening anymore. As I was sitting there, I saw a movement within the shrubbery, and I realised what I was looking at, and it was terrifying. I don't know what to call it. It had a man's body, only hairier. It had a dog-like face with amber orange eyes, and it had pointed ears, and I remember the teeth clearly. I don't know if that creature was smiling or growling, as the face was a grimace, and you could see pointed canine teeth. Now when I think about it, some features are not clear as I concentrated on the width of its shoulders, on the power of this thing, and the face of the creature. He was muscled and big and looked far stronger than me, and he just stood there and looked at me. It was dog-like in appearance, but it would be hard to identify any particular breed. I remember seeing pointed teeth and a snout. The eyes were amberish orange, and the creature was large, and at the time felt like it was 12 foot tall, but in reality it was probably around 7 or 8 feet. It was standing upright like a man, and it just looked at me, and I froze. I was paralysed to the spot. I wanted to run, but I was just rooted there with fear. It watched me for a while, and then it walked off into the woodland as it was the most natural thing. I couldn't believe what I'd just witnessed. How? Why? Why me? I felt scrutinised by that creature. It made me feel uncomfortable, and that is still happening to me. I'm struggling as I work a short drive from where my experience happened. I have to pass those woods twice a day. I'm seriously considering changing jobs and homes, if possible. Each night as I leave work and pass those woods, I feel watched, as if something's waiting for me to return. This event affected our witness so badly that he did move to another job and changed addresses. He's still working through the trauma of this event and has, over time, helped to bring many other witnesses forward with their accounts in the UK. A report from Merthyr was made to the Welsh newspaper by a lady who spotted a large black creature in the fields. The creature, or described as a mystery creature, was seen stalking the area in a predatory way near the Prince Charles Hospital in Merthyr. Following a second sighting of the unknown large animal, huge paw prints were found 30 miles away in Newport. What they are calling the Merthyr Monster 2021, NHS worker Deborah Winter had earlier raised the alarm to colleagues after seeing the Merthyr Monster. Deborah said, "My colleague and I were looking out the window and we noticed a large black cat moving slowly on the newly constructed path close to the helipad. It looked to be about the size of a dog, but it moved like a predatory cat. It caught our attention immediately, and we watched it until it went out of sight. We knew it wasn't a normal cat, so we mentioned it to our colleagues, and as far as I'm aware, there've been no other sightings." Meanwhile, 30 miles away in Newport, South Wales, mum of two, Jodie Hunt, found a large, huge paw print in mud after spotting the mystery beast walking in a field. Jodie had earlier seen a large animal looking at her and her daughters while out on a walk. She said, "The previous day my daughters and I had been out and had seen a big animal. I'm not sure what it was, but we saw it while walking and it was staring at us from under a tree. This animal was far away in the distance, but I could tell it were big. I went walking the same field a day later and I found some big paw prints." Now, between those two areas, we have a very strange report indeed. A witness via YouTube user named Luke Springer Thorpe said, "A canine creature with a 12-inch bite, with a bite force 3 times stronger than a wolf, killed my cat. He was one of 2 feline brothers we adopted. They were big cats, about 6.5 kilos each. I had a necropsy done because several cats had died in the village and we suspected it was someone with a pellet gun. The reason being, the puncture wounds were in the pits of its front and rear legs, and I measured the space between them as 12 inches. But when the vet gave the report, he explained my cat was instantly killed by a single bite. That's just horrible. Just blown me away, that, to be honest. Right, lastly, let's go to Ireland and look at the cryptid creature reports there. Oh, that last report sent a shiver down my spine. Between the River Fane and Lough Neagh, there are 2 reports from the Sperrin mountain ranges that I believe feature creatures walking between the 2 water sources. The River Fane is a river flowing from County Monaghan to Dundee Bay in County Louth and is 42 miles long. Lough Neagh is a freshwater lake in Northern Ireland and it's the largest lake on the island and in the United Kingdom. Its surface area of 151 square miles and is about 19 miles long and 9 miles wide. BBR witness account. This came in on the 7th of December 2015. I've been hiking since 2004, mostly alone and all over Ireland. In December of 2015, I was in a very remote and isolated area of the Sperrin Mountains. I'd walked the 3 hilltops surrounded by dense forest and was heading back up a hill towards a tree line to my car when I saw something very tall and large moving faster behind me about a kilometre away. It was walking, heading down the hill towards me on a route I'd just taken. I am not easily spooked, but I did not hang about as I'm of the opinion that if it wanted to, it could have caught up with me really easily. I've pondered this for a while now, what this thing could have been, but I haven't a clue what it was to this day. I see people on the hills and mountains at various distances, but this stood out as really strange, and the gait was weird. This thing was taller than a 6 foot person at the distance I saw it. It had to be 8 feet plus, in my guess. I didn't have a gun, only hiking poles. I wasn't about to wait and find out what it was. My hiking bag now has binoculars added. I have my walk recorded on a GPS, as I walk all year round, in all seasons and all weather. On this walk, I had great visibility, and I know about optical illusions, and what lone trees can give you when you're walking. I don't know what I saw that day. All I can say is that the thing I saw, for want of a better word, was out in the open, following a fence line down a hill that I'd just left. It was moving in the same direction as me, and it was moving fast. It was walking upright on 2 legs, and it had to be about 8 foot plus in height. I'm not one for seeing things, but this was huge, and it spooked me big time. One other thing that was strange was that there were camouflaged hunters like army personnel in the area, which I really thought was odd. But when they saw it, or they saw that I was hiking there, and they left the area. I did see them with a map and they were studying, which I thought was highly unusual, as local hunters of game know the area, don't really carry maps. The area I walked in was wet, with some very marshy ground on my first hill near my starting point up past two forests. The hill's known as Carnelly West Top, about 505 metres high. The big thing was coming towards me as I left Carnelly West Top, and it was walking towards Mullaghbane summit, and that's all I can tell you. I actually waited in my car for it to come over the top of Mullaghbane, but nothing appeared. I then got another report from Sleeve Galleon in Antrim, and this person said, you should get your investigator in Antrim to look into Churchtown near Cookstown. There were stories in the late 80s and 90s about the wild hunt. Most people reported howling outside and banging noises being heard around the village. People were moving away because they were so scared. When I was 10, I saw a big long-legged, dark, hairy brown bugger of a thing that would have to have been 2 to 3 foot taller than my dad. He was about 5'9", 5'10", I think. I saw it in the woods nearby. I tried later, but I couldn't reach the branch that it nearly took its head off on. I saw it as it jumped down off the bank into the stream, and that bank was taller than I was. Just south of these reports are several in the area of Ballybola. Many witnesses there have confirmed sightings of upright, hairy figures seen in the woodlands. So it would seem, to me, that if you find a waterway and you follow it for long enough, you may just get your long-awaited cryptid experience. Or, if like me, you're happy to give that a miss, maybe stick to woodlands away from major rivers. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you'll join me for future episodes. I release content like this every week, and I'm sure I'll cover a topic you enjoy, so don't miss out. Hit that follow or like button. Please check out my YouTube and Patreon memberships for early or exclusive content, and you can find the link to them and my social media and donation sites in one handy link tree below. BBR is not funded, so any donation, no matter how small, is highly appreciated. So I will bid you adieu, and I will be back at the same time, the same day, with more from the BBR Case Files.